Hello，你好，Welcome back，欢迎回来，and 晚安，Good evening. This is Wisdom Wednesday with Johnny Dagger on December 8th, 2021. Living here in British Columbia, perhaps the most notorious and expected weather pattern is rain, especially this time of the year. Just rain, 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 rain. Day and night it rains, every day it rains, every week it rains. It's just so tiresome. This year, in fact, we got so much rain that there are parts of BC that's totally flooded and there are people losing their home, the highways were destroyed, and oh, it's just horrible, horrible stuff. So, needless to say, when it rains this much, one of the things that people are closest to, almost your best friend, is the umbrella. Now, personally, I don't like to use umbrella because as a blind person, I already have one hand occupied using my white cane. So I do not want to have my other hand occupied by an umbrella. But that's strictly personal preferences. I do keep a small umbrella in my backpack for times when the rain is just way too much for even my rain jacket. So let's talk about umbrella today. In Mandarin, umbrella is called 雨伞,雨伞. That's Yuesun. 雨伞. Yu means rain, san means umbrella. In the late 80s, early 90s, a very popular Chinese novelist came out with a series of martial art fantasy books, which then got adapted to movies and TV series. These books, these stories depict a hero who travels the land, righting wrong, bring justice to the poor and the weak, the defender of the innocent. Uh, this guy was called the man with the iron umbrella. And true to his name, he did not use the sword, he did not use the knife, he carried a metal umbrella. The frame, the fabric, everything on the umbrella is metal, the iron, the steel. And the umbrella even could fire poison darts from the tip if he needed to have a range surprise attack. This became so popular that we start to see many other depictions of using umbrella as a weapon in video games, in comic books. Uh, but this is nothing new, actually. Even from way back when Buddhism first came to China, one of the four uh, heavenly kings in the Buddhist religion, one of the four heavenly kings that guard the Buddhist temple, is armed with an umbrella that is said to contain the great flood. So if you upset him, he opens the umbrella and he can dump enough water on the world to flood the world and bring the great flood back. Uh, yeah, dangerous guy. So with all these depictions of weaponizing umbrellas, was there ever such a thing as a real metal or iron umbrella? What, or was that just a fiction, uh, a fragment of people's imagination, maybe made up by an author who had good active imagination? Well, as it turns out, as historians dig deeper into Chinese history, there was such a thing as an iron umbrella. Not just one, it was the tool of a trade. Which trade, you may ask? Well, the metal umbrella was the uh, bread and butter of tomb raiders, aka tomb robbers in ancient China. Now, some of us now might feel a certain way, uh, rightly so, judgmental, uh, feeling a bit like, oh, these are like creepy, evil people that rob people's grave and what they have no moral or whatever. And maybe so. I mean, I definitely agree that tomb robbing, grave robbing is a very down and dirty kind of a profession. It's illegal and all that stuff. But that does not negate the fact that tomb raiders, tomb robbers, just like how it was depicted in the Tomb Raider video game, required a massive amount of skills, courage, and knowledge. I mean, these people weren't robbing like graves and tombs of civilians. These were people who go around looking for graves of ancient emperors and royalties and where they can find massive amount of treasures. And of course, these graves, these tombs, usually were loaded with uh, traps and poison and all kind of nasty stuff that because they expected tomb robbers and tomb raiders to come looking for them. So a lot of these tomb raiders and tomb robbers, they have very specialized skills and knowledge and tools to help them get into these ancient tombs of emperors and nobles. One of these tools was a metal umbrella. It looked basically, and it looked and worked basically like your modern folding umbrella, with the only exception is the fabric was uh, mostly sheets of metal laced together, so they were still flexible enough for the umbrella to fold up. But when you open it up, then it forms like a great big metal shield. So, what was this used for? As I mentioned, a lot of these ancient tombs were loaded with nasty traps. You step on the wrong cobblestone, and suddenly a thousand arrows come straight at you, or a poison dart comes shooting out of the wall, or spikes come dropping down from the ceiling, or a giant axe suddenly swing down from the ceiling and cut you in half. Nasty, nasty stuff. Like these ancient people really knew how to design these uh, traps to kill people. So the tomb robbers designed this metal umbrella. So when they were crawling around in the tunnels and digging holes, trying to dig their way into the tomb, they can fold it up and carry it on their back, and so it's not always in the way. Rather than like if you were going to carry a big heavy shield, then yeah, there's no way you would be able to try to dig a hole and crawl through a tunnel and stuff like that. That's just too big, too bulky. So they designed this metal umbrella so they can fold it up. And when they're doing their work and when they're digging or whatever, they can fold it up. And if they suspect there's a trap ahead, then they take it out and have it ready. And as soon as they trigger a trap, let's say a bunch of arrows suddenly come soaring towards them out of the darkness, they can quickly open up the umbrella, and that didn't work all the time, but hopefully was able to save their life for a split second, long enough for them to turn and run away. So the metal or iron umbrella did exist, but it was not designed as a weapon. It was designed purely as a defensive tool for people who wanted to evade traps. So who actually weaponized umbrella. I hate to say this, white people. During the Second World War, in fact, that was the first historical record of an umbrella actually being designed to hurt people. And it was by the spies and secret service members and secret agents and espionage people on both sides of the war. So Russians and British and French and all those undercover agents, they found all kind of nasty ways to attack people covertly. And one of those ways was an umbrella with a gun barrel hidden in the shaft. And this could fire anything from a one-shot uh, bullet, a shotgun shell, or poison dart, or some kind of crossbow bolt. uh, so that's when umbrella first got weaponized. And even today, even though it is highly illegal, there are a lot of people that walk around carrying an umbrella sword. What is an umbrella sword? Well, it's an umbrella with a dagger hidden inside the handle. So if you get into a fight, you twist the handle, you pull it out, and it's a dagger. And yeah, I don't need to explain the rest. Nasty stuff. It's why it's illegal. You know, it's just not very nice. Um, Chinese people had their own version of umbrella sword, but they did not hide the dagger inside an umbrella. They hide it inside a walking cane. I'm sure you guys, especially those of you who play Assassin's Creed or you watched enough kung fu movie, you've seen it. People carrying a cane, and then when they get into a fight, they suddenly pull a sword or a dagger out of their cane and can attack with that. And that was the Chinese invention. But Chinese people did not weaponize umbrella. Today, a lot of Chinese people refer to umbrella as yang san. As we said, it's actually called yu san. Yu means rain. So what the heck is yang san? Yang, well, as we said, san means umbrella. Yang means Western, uh, white people. So a lot of Chinese people call umbrella Yangsan, means it's invented by white people, but that is incorrect. The oldest umbrella were invented by Chinese people. You knew I was going to say that. I'm sure some of you by this point are thinking, yeah, 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 yeah. According to you, everything's invented by Chinese people. Well, not everything, but you got to figure Chinese people been around for 5,000 years, so they had a lot of time to mess around and come up with all kind of ideas. So who or how, excuse me, who or how was an umbrella invented? Uh, as far as the most cohesive uh, origin I have heard, it was actually invented by Lu Ban. Who is Lu Ban? Uh, Most Chinese people know who he is, but I imagine he's not very well known in the Western culture. Lu Ban is a grand master or the uh, ancestor, the first, the pioneer of woodworking in China. He lived about 4,500 years ago, and even today, if you are in the trade, if you are a woodworker, if you work with building and carving, then the god, the person you would pay homage to, you would worship, is Lu Ban. Lu Ban was the first person to teach Chinese people how to build houses. He was the first person to learn how to make uh, barrels, wooden barrels, and he was the first person to uh, learn how to cut down trees and actually fashion them into boats and stuff like that. So Lu Ban, you can say, was the great great granddaddy of woodworking in China. Um, so the story has it that Lu Ban was always very busy in his workshop and making stuff to improve other people's life, carving, uh, uh, sawing, and sanding wood. Lu Ban's wife was very loving, and she would uh, bring lunch to him from their home uh, every day to his workshop. However, sometimes it would rain and there would be a thunderstorm, but she would still bring him lunch. And by the time she gets to the workshop, she would be soaking wet and very miserable, very like shivering cold. So Lu Ban thought, okay, why don't I build a wooden shed halfway between the house and the workshop? So if it rains, then my wife can hide in the shed until it stops raining. That was his initial idea. But it turned out to be a lousy idea because sometimes it's rain for the whole day. And his wife pointed out to him, well, my whole point of leaving the house is to bring you lunch. I can't just hide in the shed all day long. And what are you going to eat for lunch? So this is lousy idea. I'm sorry to say it, dear, but maybe you should make it possible for me to carry this shed with me. Well, that gave Luban the idea. Okay, well, we don't really need the rest of the shed. We just need the top, and we only need it to be big enough to cover my wife. So he invented the first umbrella. It was the frame was wood, and the top was oil treated paper. Later, more rich people started to use oil treated leather, fabric, and other material for the umbrella. But the earliest umbrella was wooden frame and with oil treated paper. It wasn't until 1747 when a British merchant who was doing business in China saw the Chinese people were using umbrella when it was raining, and he thought it was a great idea, and he brought an umbrella back to Britain. Now, initially, the English people was very resentful of the idea of umbrella because people back then believed that the raindrop from the heaven was a gift from the god. So the god see fit to rain upon you. How dare you block it with an umbrella? That is heresy. That is not polite. Disrespectful to the god. So it took the English people almost 30 years before they started realizing that, you know what, umbrella is kind of cool. And at least we won't get soaking wet and get sick and stuff like that. Uh, Gradually, they took the original design of the oil treated material and improve upon it, and gradually white people uh, came up with a folding umbrella with a metal frame and nylon fabric, and that got introduced back to Chinese people. This is why nowadays a younger generation tend to think that umbrella is an invention of the white people, but no, white people actually got it from China and they improved upon it and then it got back to China. Since we're on the subject of umbrella, I want to bring up another little trivia. Who do you think came up with parachuting? Yes, it was Chinese people. Um, Back in 1307, during the Yuan dynasty, when Mongolian people ruled China, every year there was a big ceremony, big festival at the imperial palace where people from all over the country would come and bring uh, gift for the emperor, and some people would bring their music or come and perform for the emperor. Uh, Anyone who managed to entertain the emperor would get rewarded handsomely. So a lot of people came from all over the world, all over China. There's one time, like I said, 1307, a troop of acrobats came from northern China, and to impress the emperor, they armed themselves with huge umbrella made of light fabric and very sturdy frame, and they threw themselves off the top of the imperial palace, and the umbrella was able to help them not break their leg when they landed. This was the first historically recorded cases of parachuting. Uh, Gradually, more and more people thought this was really cool, and more people in China started copying them, and people started uh, coming up with different design for the umbrella, and it got bigger and lighter, and people started throwing themselves off of top of buildings. Luckily, back then the buildings weren't very tall, so there wasn't a lot of accidents. Gradually, this new sport, this new entertainment, got out to Southeastern Asia. So uh, more countries in Southeast Asia started copying this activity, and by the 17th century, uh, it finally got to the Westerners. I believe it was again British people, or it might have been the Spaniards that came to Southeast Asia and saw, whoa, people are throwing themselves off buildings and they don't break their leg because they use these umbrellas to to help them land. So that's how parachuting first got to the Western world. Again, all started way back in 1307 in China. When it comes to umbrella, Chinese people had a very strict uh, ranking system. Uh, Only emperors were allowed to use yellow umbrella. Anyone else had to use uh, mostly black. Back then, uh, poor people or people who didn't have any status could not use any material other than paper, oiled paper. And it's not until you earn yourself a nobility or you become really rich and you're a recognized member of society that you can graduate to use materials such as leather or fabric. There was also another kind of umbrella called gai. In Mandarin, it's called gai. What is a gai? Gai is the umbrella used to block the sun. Now, nowadays, people don't really make a distinction. Nowadays, people carry an umbrella. You can use for rain, you can use for sun, whatever. In the old days, there's a very clear distinction. Only people of highly powerful stations could use a guide, such as emperors and nobilities, and people did not ever hold a guide themselves. The guide was always held by a servant who stand behind them and holds a guide over their head to block out the light or the burning sun. So that's it, folks. Now that you know a little bit more of the history behind the umbrella, hopefully next time you have to hold one in your hand and shelter beneath the umbrella, you have a little bit of a more appreciation for this wonderful tool that has such a long and relatively complicated history. Thank you for checking out today's Wisdom Wednesday. And yes, I know the Tactical Tuesday is still missing, but it's going to come as Tactical Thursday. And so we'll see you guys tomorrow. Now, have a good night.